If you've ever tried to be kinder to yourself and it just didn't stick, if you've caught yourself saying, I need to stop being so hard on myself, while that inner voice keeps criticizing anyway, let's start right here. There is nothing wrong with you. And there are very real, understandable reasons why, especially as a highly sensitive person, self-kindness can feel difficult, unfamiliar, and sometimes even unsafe. In this video, we're going to gently and deeply explore why highly sensitive people develop harsh inner critics, why we feel things so deeply in the first place, how that depth often turns into self-blame, why self-kindness can feel uncomfortable or threatening, and how to begin shifting this in a way that actually feels safe. Make sure to watch the entire video because I will be adding a special bonus meditation, which is deeply soothing and is designed specifically for highly sensitive nervous systems. As you watch and listen, see if you can let yourself soften just a little. You don't have to fix anything today. Also, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss another video about thriving as a highly sensitive person. Now, I invite you to grab a cup of tea, find a cozy spot, take a deep breath, and let's dive in. The reality of high sensitivity. This means your brain and nervous system are taking in more subtle information and spending more time making sense of it. So, where someone else might move on quickly, you stay with the experience, not because you want to, but because your system is still processing. Here's a client example which focuses on depth of processing. I worked with a client, I'll call her Sarah, who came in feeling completely exhausted by her own mind. She said to me, I feel like I'm constantly doing something wrong. I just don't know what it is. And when we slowed things down, she told me about a moment that on the surface seemed very small. She passed a colleague in the hallway at work. They smiled at her, but something about it felt off. Not obviously, not dramatically, just slightly different. And for Sarah, that moment didn't end when the interaction ended. It stayed. On her walk back to her desk, the thought started. Was that a real smile? Did I do something yesterday? Did I say something wrong in the meeting? By lunchtime, she was replaying conversations from earlier in the week. By the evening, she had mentally constructed a narrative where she had somehow upset this person, even though there was no clear evidence that she had. And she said something that I hear so often from highly sensitive people. I wish I could just let things go like everyone else. But this isn't about willpower. This is what deep processing looks like, without support. Her system was trying to understand something subtle, but without a framework for that sensitivity, it turned inward and became self-doubt. Why you feel things so deeply. For highly sensitive people, emotions are not just thoughts. They are full body experiences. A tone of voice, a shift in energy, a moment of tension. Your body registers it quickly, and then it stays activated longer. Here's a client example highlighting nervous system activation. Another client, Priya, came to me feeling frustrated in her relationship. She said, my partner and I can have a disagreement and he's fine 10 minutes later, and I'm still upset for hours. I don't understand what's wrong with me. She described a recent argument. It wasn't explosive. There was no yelling. It was just a disagreement about something relatively minor. But for Priya, once the conversation ended, her body didn't settle. Her heart was still racing. Her chest felt tight. Her mind kept looping. Why did that feel so intense? Why can't I calm down? Why am I still thinking about this? Meanwhile, her partner had moved on. And that contrast became the most painful part. Because now it wasn't just the disagreement she was dealing with. It was the belief that she was too much. She told me, I feel broken, like I just can't handle things the way other people do. But what was actually happening was that her nervous system needed more time to process and regulate. Her body was still completing the stress response. And instead of being met with understanding, internally, She was being met with criticism. So how does deep feeling become self-blame? When intense feelings don't make sense, the mind looks for answers. And very often it lands here. It must be me. So instead of meeting your experience with understanding, you meet it with correction. The following exemplifies HSP's self-blame pattern. I worked with someone who would cry when she felt overwhelmed. Not constantly, but when something touched her deeply, the tears came quickly. And what was so striking wasn't the crying itself. It was what happened immediately after. Almost instantly, another voice would appear. Here we go again. This is too much. You're being dramatic. Get it together. So now she wasn't just feeling sadness. She was feeling shame about feeling sadness. And that layering created a kind of emotional pileup. She said to me, it's like I don't even give myself a chance to feel anything without attacking myself for it. Over time, her system had learned feeling means it's not safe. Emotion must be controlled. Expression leads to judgment. So instead of self-compassion, she developed self-surveillance, and that's where self-blame becomes automatic. The inner critic as protection. Your inner critic didn't come from nowhere. It developed for a reason. For many of us, our sensitivity was misunderstood by those around us when we were growing up. You may have received messages directly or indirectly that your feelings were too much, so your system adapted. It created an internal voice that tries to manage you before others can reject you. Here's an example of an inner critic formed in childhood. Bruce shared that growing up, his home wasn't openly harsh, but it wasn't emotionally attuned either. Whenever he got upset, his parents would respond with things like, "You're fine. It's not a big deal. Don't be so sensitive." There wasn't cruelty, but there also wasn't space. So he learned something very subtle but powerful. His emotions were inconvenient, and over time he stopped expressing them outwardly. But internally, something else formed, a voice that began to monitor him. Don't overreact. Don't make this a big deal. Keep it together. As an adult, he no longer needed anyone else to say those things. He had internalized them. And he said to me, it's like I became the person who shuts myself down. That inner critic didn't appear out of nowhere. It was learned. It was adaptive. It helped him belong. But now it was keeping him disconnected from himself. Why self-kindness feels unsafe. This is where many people get stuck. Because they try to be kind to themselves, and it doesn't feel good. It feels awkward or fake or even anxiety-provoking. That's not resistance. That's your nervous system protecting what it knows. I'll give you an example of what this looks like. I once guided a client through a very simple exercise. I asked her to place a hand on her heart and say something kind to herself, something gentle, like, I'm doing the best I can. Within seconds, her body reacted. Her shoulders tightened. Her breath became shallow, and she said, I don't like this. Not because the words were wrong, but because the feeling was unfamiliar. When we explored it, she realized something important. Criticism felt normal. Kindness felt vulnerable. And in her system, vulnerability did not feel safe. So instead of forcing the practice, we slowed it down. We acknowledged the discomfort. We made space for the part of her that didn't trust kindness yet. And over time, very slowly, her system began to allow small moments of softness. Let's talk about trauma and the need for control. For many HSPs, there's also a trauma layer. Not necessarily dramatic trauma, but repeated emotional overwhelm without support. In those environments, the nervous system adapts, and one adaptation is control. The inner critic tries to prevent pain by predicting it. Here's an example. One client described feeling she had to get everything just right. Every email, every conversation, every decision. She would replay interactions repeatedly, analyzing, was that okay? Did I say too much? Did that sound weird? And underneath all of that was fear. When we traced it back, she shared that growing up, mistakes were not met with support. They were met with withdrawal, silence, disconnection. So her system learned mistakes equal loss of connection. Imperfection equals risk. And so her inner critic became relentless, not because she disliked herself, but because some part of her believed, if I can just get it right, I'll be safe. Let's try a gentle regulation practice. Let's pause together. Place one hand on your chest and one on your abdomen. Breathe in slowly through your nose and out gently through your mouth. Let the exhale be slightly longer. And as you breathe out, soften your body just 5%. You don't have to feel calm, just a little less tense. You might say to yourself, this is enough for now. Here's the bonus exercise I was telling you about. This is a guided self-compassion meditation specifically for highly sensitive people. Before we begin, I want to gently introduce the intention behind this practice. This meditation is inspired by the Buddhist teachings of compassion, known as karuna, and loving kindness or metta, which have been practiced for over 2,500 years and are often associated with the teachings of the Buddha. In these teachings, compassion is not something you have to earn. It's not something reserved for others. It's understood as a natural quality of the heart, the ability to meet suffering with care instead of judgment. And for HSPs, this practice can feel especially meaningful because you already feel deeply. The invitation here is not to feel less, but to relate to what you feel in a different way. Instead of meeting your experience with criticism, you begin gently to meet it with kindness. And if this feels unfamiliar or even uncomfortable at times, that is completely okay. You don't have to force anything. Just allowing yourself to be here is enough. I invite you to find a position that feels comfortable and supportive. You can sit or lie down. Allow your body to settle. And if it feels okay, gently close your eyes or soften your gaze. Take a slow, gentle breath in through your nose and a longer, softer breath out through your mouth. Again, breathing in and out. Again, breathing in and out. Let your breath return to its natural rhythm. No need to control it, just allowing. Now begin to bring your awareness into your body. Notice where your body is supported, the weight of you being held, the chair beneath you, the ground under your feet. Let yourself feel that support, even just a little. If it feels comfortable, place one hand over your heart or somewhere on your body that feels soothing. Notice the warmth of your hand, the gentle pressure, the contact. Stay here for a few breaths. Now, very gently, bring to mind something in your life that feels a little difficult right now. Nothing overwhelming, just something tender. A moment when you were hard on yourself, a feeling of not being enough, or a quiet sense of emotional heaviness. And as you bring this to mind, notice what happens in your body without trying to change it, just noticing. Now, softly begin with acknowledgement. You might say to yourself, this is a moment of difficulty, or this feels hard right now. Let the words be simple. Let them be honest, and notice what it's like to name your experience without judgment. Now, gently bring in the awareness of common humanity. This is a core part of Buddhist self-compassion. the understanding that you are not alone in what you feel. You might say, others feel this too. I'm not alone in this. There are so many people in this moment feeling something similar. Let that land gently, not as an idea, but as a quiet softening of isolation. Now we begin to introduce kindness. And this is where you can go very slowly. There is no need to force a feeling. Just offering the intention is enough. You might say, may I be kind to myself. May I give myself the compassion I need. May I allow myself to be exactly as I am. Or, if this feels like too much, you can simply say, I'm here, and stay with that. Notice your hand on your heart, and imagine that beneath your hand, there is a soft, warm light. This light represents kindness, not perfect kindness, not forced kindness, just a gentle, steady presence. With each breath out, allow that warmth to expand just slightly through your chest, your shoulders, your arms, down into your belly. If resistance arises, if a voice says, this isn't working, or this feels fake, that's okay. That too is welcome here. You might gently say, it makes sense, this feels unfamiliar. Of course this is hard. And let that be enough. Now, very gently, bring awareness to the part of you that is often critical. The voice that says, you're not enough. You should be different. Instead of pushing it away, see if you can acknowledge it. You might say, I see you. I know you're trying to protect me. Thank you for trying to help. And then softly add, I'm learning a new way. Now, return to your breath. Slowly inhale. Gently exhale. Feel your body again. Supported, held, breathing. We'll stay here for a few quiet moments, just breathing, allowing, softening where it feels possible. Now, very gently, begin to deepen your breath just slightly, inviting a little more air in and a slightly fuller exhale out. Feel the movement of your body as you breathe, the rise and fall of your chest, and the support beneath you. And before you fully come back, take a moment to notice this. Even if part of you still feels tense or unsure, there was a moment, however small, where you met yourself differently. And that matters. That is the beginning of self-compassion. Not perfection, not constant calm, but moments of meeting yourself with kindness. Now gently begin to bring your awareness back. You might wiggle your fingers, your toes, maybe turn your head from side to side. And when it feels right, slowly, gently open your eyes. Take your time. Remember, self-compassion is not something you have to get right. It's something you practice gently, patiently, and especially as an HSP. This practice can become a way of creating safety within yourself. If this felt supportive, you can return to it anytime. Even a few breaths can begin to shift something. And for now, just notice that you showed up, and that is enough. In closing, I'd like to remind you that being hard on yourself is not a flaw. It's something your system learned, and anything learned can soften gently, gradually, safely. I'd love to hear from you. In what ways have you been hard on yourself? And what are the practices you are using to be kinder and gentler with yourself? And if you found this conversation helpful, please like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more episodes on thriving as a highly sensitive person in all areas of your life. Thank you for spending time with me. Remember, you can stop being so hard on yourself and instead practice self-compassion instead. Very gently and slowly, one baby step at a time.